Walter's Sports Bar has been recognized by many local publications as one of the best sports bars in Washington, D.C., located across the street from Nationals Park and open year-round.
A massage chair might seem a bit extravagant, especially these days. 8 different settings, adjustable intensity, plus it's heated, and it just feels so good. Yes, a massage chair might seem a bit extravagant, but when it can come with a car, suddenly it seems quite practical. The all-new 2025 Volkswagen Tiguan, packed with premium features like available massaging front seats, it only feels extravagant.
Runners lead second and first. Here's the pitch. Swinging a chopping ground ball towards short. Wynn has it. Underhand toss to second. Millas is out on a close play, and the game is over. The Nationals drop Miguel Cairo's managerial debut by a final of 4-2.
It's been a rough 48 hours. And it's been hard.
Simply stepping up our game is not enough. We need real change. I'm excited to bring a fresh approach, a fresh voice to this role, integrate more data, more technology, more innovation into our decision-making across the organization at all levels.
And welcome to Nats Chat, along with MASNsports.com Nationals insider Mark Zuckerman, who was at Busch Stadium in St. Louis. I'm Al Galdi, host of the Al Galdi podcast. A new era of the Nationals has begun. Nats managing principal owner Mark Lerner on Sunday evening announced having fired Nats president of baseball operations and general manager Mike Rizzo and manager Davey Martinez, and announced having promoted Mike DeBartolo to interim GM. The Nats on Monday afternoon announced having promoted bench coach Miguel Cairo to interim manager. DeBartolo spoke to reporters on Tuesday afternoon, at least in my opinion, was really impressive, said some really encouraging things. The Nats finally, mercifully, maybe about to truly embrace analytics. Cairo in his session with reporters on Tuesday afternoon got emotional. And then the Nats played a game because there still is a lot of season left. The Nats did lose a 4-2 loss at the St. Louis Cardinals on Tuesday night in Game 1 of a 3-game series. This was a game for which the start was delayed for 2 hours and 19 minutes due to rain. The game itself lasted for 2 hours and 21 minutes, so the delay was nearly as long as the actual game. The Nats now are at a new low point in MLB's 2025 regular season, 17 games below 500, 37 and 54. You can find us on X at Nats_chat. You can find us on Blue Sky at Nats Chat Podcast. You can email us natschatpodcast@gmail.com. We have a website you could check out too, natschatpodcast.com, at which you can purchase a Nats Chat podcast t-shirt. Mark, you on Tuesday afternoon made Miguel Cairo cry. I hope that you are proud of yourself. But man, when it came to Tuesday, there was so much to take in, perhaps the least of which was the actual game.
Yeah, agreed. It was an entirely nondescript baseball game after a 48-hour stretch that was anything but nondescript. So much has happened in the last 2 days. When they finally took the field, and as you said, it was, after 9 o'clock local time, 10 p.m. back east, before they took the field, it almost felt like everyone just take a deep breath and just watch a baseball game that really didn't have a lot to it to dissect. And so I think really what happened before the game was of far more consequence. And for the record, I was not trying to make Miguel Cairo cry. I just simply asked him the first question of what these last 48 hours had been like for him and how emotional they'd been. And you could see if you watched the interview, if you heard him afterwards, this has not been easy for him. I think as we discussed the two people now in charge of the team in various ways, these are two very different people, I think, embracing their new roles in very different ways. You have a new interim GM who is getting his first ever opportunity to do a job that I don't know if he ever knew he would get the chance to, but is really all in on trying to show that he can be successful here and do it in a different way than the previous GM did. And you have an interim manager who is kind of reluctantly taking this job, only took it, as he said, because he got Davey Martinez's blessing. He was prepared, if Davey had any qualms about it, to walk out of here himself and go home. I mean, that tells you a lot about their relationship. It also tells you probably where Miguel Cairo figures into the long-term plan, or not figuring in to the long-term plan. It was quite the day. And these are two good men being thrust into the spotlight in a way neither of them expected to. And I think they're going to approach this quite differently from each other, to be honest.
We want to thank everyone for the recent support of this podcast. If you are new to the Nats Chat podcast, welcome aboard. This is the only Nationals podcast for which you get a new episode the morning after every Nationals regular season and postseason game day. We're with you weekend, weekday, does not matter. And this is season number 5 of us doing what we're doing. And we're thrilled to have you with us, however you may be joining us. Mike DeBartolo, to me, that was the takeaway in so many ways from Tuesday. Mike DeBartolo, what he said, how he spoke to you guys on Tuesday afternoon. So who the heck is this guy? Graduated from Tufts University in 2006, Columbia Business School 2013. He had 2 stints as an intern with the Nats, May 2012 to August 2012, May 2013 to October 2013. He in November 2013 began working as a baseball operations analyst for the Nats, and he climbed the organizational ladder to where he became senior vice president and assistant general manager of baseball operations, and he now is the interim GM. I thought everything that he said to you guys was exactly what needed to be said and is exactly what the Nats need. And that is a general manager, a head of baseball operations who is going to bring the Nats up to speed, who is going to modernize this baseball operations department in terms of analytics and sports science. And, you know, we'll see if he gets the funding to do this. He certainly suggested that the Lerner Ownership Group will provide that funding, or at the very least is motivated to win. That was kind of the language that Mike DeBartolo used. But the takeaway quote from what he said to you, I thought, was this. Quote, simply stepping up our game is not enough. We need real change. I'm excited to bring a fresh approach, a fresh voice to this role and integrate more data, more technology, more innovation into our decision making across the organization at all levels and hopefully improve the performance of our players as well. End quote.
You know, I think there's a lot more of an ability to use data and technology and innovation at every single level.
Miguel Cairo got emotional on Tuesday afternoon. Mark, I myself nearly started crying when I heard Mike DeBartolo speak in those terms. What did you think when you were hearing what Mike DeBartolo was saying to you guys?
I had a feeling you were going to enjoy that one, Al. I feel like you've been waiting for somebody in a position of authority to speak that kind of language, your kind of language, for quite some time. I thought Mike did an outstanding job under the circumstances. I know to everyone else out there, he is completely new to all of you. You've probably never even seen his face before, let alone heard his voice or his express his thoughts on a lot of things. To those of us who are around the team every day, he's been a constant presence, somebody that we would see all the time. Very friendly individual, very soft-spoken, does not seek the spotlight. You know, he's done a few interviews over the years on specific topics, but this is the first time he'd ever really sat in front of a group of reporters like that. And you could tell he was nervous, especially as he gave his opening statement. But he touched on everything that he needed to. He said all the right things, I believe. And I think what was clear, as you said, first of all, that he kept coming back to those same points about being successful by doing things in a different way, by utilizing data, technology, innovation, all those kinds of things that they've maybe had on the outskirts, but maybe didn't put front and center in the past. So that was number one takeaway. But the number two takeaway was, and again, he's a modest guy who is not going to go out and try to sell himself. But I think in what he said, the way he answered the questions, I think he made it clear that he's putting himself in the running for this job, not just to finish out the year, but for the long-term position whenever that decision is made. Now, there's a long way to go, and he's got so much on his plate that he can barely think about that in the moment. But he struck me as someone who, even if he had no idea how or when this might happen for him, was fully prepared for the moment when it came, and probably deep down inside his mind over the last several years has formulated a lot of these thoughts in his head. If I ever get the opportunity, this is how I would want to do it. For me, great first day for him. But now the proof's going to be in the pudding. Is he given the resources to do what he wants to do? And ultimately, does he do enough over these next 3 months to put himself in the running for the job on a full-time basis?
He came off completely prepared to what you were just talking about. He came off like someone who has been waiting for this moment, who has had a vision for how he would run the Nats if he was in charge, and now he is in charge, and so he's going to make the most of this opportunity. We don't know if the interim tag will eventually be removed from Mike DeBartolo's GM title, but I tell you, he's off to a good start, I think. I mean, I don't know how, if you are the Nats fan who has been clamoring for this team to become more modern, you didn't love every word that came out of the mouth of Mike DeBartolo on Tuesday afternoon. And I think an underrated thing here, too, is he knows this ownership group. And so in theory, if he gets the full-time job, the permanent job, he might know how to navigate this ownership group, to borrow a phrase from the man who he would be succeeding in Mike Rizzo. And I think there's value in that. Now, I don't know if you are the learners that you would base the hiring on, well, this guy knows how to handle us, right? That would be kind of odd. But just from the outside looking in, I think that's a sneaky positive with this guy, that he gets how things are here. He saw what Mike Rizzo had to deal with. He clearly sees where Mike Rizzo went wrong. I mean, it was funny hearing what DeBartolo did. He thanked Mike Rizzo, and then he said, quote, "We need real change," end quote. Like, that's kind of a shot at Mike Rizzo. I don't think DeBartolo meant it as a shot, but that is a shot when you say we need real change. I'm excited to bring a fresh approach. So good for him for saying what he said. And, we'll see what happens. I get it. But I think he's off to a good start when it comes to trying to get that full-time GM job.
Yeah. And, let's be clear about some things. He is not somebody stepping out of the back room, like who's been totally in the shadows. Like, he has been front and center, maybe not in the public's eye, but he really has been involved in everything they've done, certainly the last 4 or 5 years or so, as he climbed up the ladder and essentially became, Rizzo's, number 2 guy or his top assistant. A lot of teams who have longtime GMs, at some point, they get promoted to a president of baseball operations, and they promote one of their lieutenants to the GM role. And it's not maybe the classic GM role that we think of, because the guy at the top is still calling the shots on a day-to-day basis. This wasn't the case in name. Mike Rizzo wanted to be not just the president of baseball operations, but the GM as well, who was there on a daily basis. But I think a lot of the work that Mike DeBartolo has done the last few years would probably be comparable to what some current GMs have been doing, the kind of second-tier younger GMs who still work for somebody above them. Very involved in trade discussions. He went out of his way to mention the role he played in the Juan Soto trade, even mentioned James Wood in particular as someone that he suggested that he was involved in that decision, that James Wood would be one of the prospects that they were asking for in return. He hasn't been as involved in the draft necessarily, but he knows how it works. He has worked directly with Mark Lerner and the Lerner family and made it sound like he's very comfortable doing that with them. So I think this is somebody who, as you said, like kind of has been prepped for this possibility for a while and seems very comfortable in the role. Now, the proof is going to be, how does he do? And he's got 2 major assignments right off the bat. He's got the draft on Sunday, number 1 pick. And the way he described it, now, first of all, he was here for the game on Tuesday. The plan was he's flying back to DC on Wednesday and spending the rest of the week with the scouts in the draft room working on that. So that's his priority immediately. And while he definitely defers to Danny Haas and Brad Ciolek and Reed Dunn and the scouting team, he made it clear that he is going to be involved in these decisions, and that ultimately, in theory, he has a call on that. Now, I think even Mike Rizzo supported his scouts and would defer to them in a lot of ways. So I don't know that DeBartolo is going to override what Danny Haas and Brad Ciolek decide they want to do with the number 1 pick, but he's certainly going to be involved in that. As soon as they get done with that, he moves right into trade deadline discussions, July 31st, and there is a lot on his plate for that. Sure looks like the Nats are going to be sellers again, and he's got to decide just how far he wants to go in that realm with players on expiring contracts, but even more so with players who are under control for more than just this year.
Yes, and I want to get to that. I did want to mention this, though, and there's been a lot of great reporting here in recent days, certainly by Mark on MASNsports.com. We also had this from the Washington Post in a piece that came out on Monday regarding Mike DeBartolo. Quote, 5 people in the front office who spoke on the condition of anonymity cast Monday as the most optimistic they have felt about the future of the franchise in a long time, end quote. That is interesting. That is perhaps very telling that maybe there have been more than a few people in that front office, in the organization, who have wanted to see a more modern approach to things, and that approach has not been implemented. Now, it's always been a little tricky. How much of that was Mike Rizzo? How much of that was the Lerner ownership group not giving Rizzo the tools with which he could implement a more modern approach? But whatever the case, maybe possibly things are finally about to become more modern.
The one thing I'll say about that, and it's very good reporting by my colleagues, my friends at the Washington Post. I don't know who they talked to specifically, but I'd be willing to bet that all or most of those 5 people work in departments that are maybe more forward thinking. I know there are people who work for this team who are Rizzo's guys, and I cannot imagine that they are thrilled with the developments of the last few days. These are guys who may be out of work at the end of the year. And I'm not saying either side is right or wrong in that regard. I'm sure that there are people who work for the team who are excited and optimistic about a new direction they may be going. But I wouldn't put that across the board, because you still had a good number of prominent people working for this team who have scouting backgrounds, who've been in the game a long time, who have more of that traditional background to get to a point to be in a front office. And these are Mike Rizzo's really trusted guys who, I'm sure this was a devastating event for them. And it could also mean that there are changes coming in their direction at the end of the year. Again, not one side right or wrong, but I don't know that I would classify this as everybody across the board who works for the Nationals is thrilled with the way this all happened.
Regarding the trade deadline, so I think this is fascinating from Mike DeBartolo's perspective, because, you know, the conversation right now for the most part is DeBartolo, his approach, Miguel Cairo, his approach. But then there's also, okay, what should be done with this team and with this rebuild? And what I wonder about is this: does Mike DeBartolo view this as a failed rebuild that has to be restarted? Or does Mike DeBartolo view this as a salvageable rebuild where, okay, if we just tinker with a few things, if we tweak a few things, this actually can end up working out? And what I'm getting at is MacKenzie Gore. MacKenzie Gore is at the same point contractually that Juan Soto was at when the Nats traded him August 2nd, 2022. If you view this as a failed rebuild, if you view this as we got to start all over, this organization is a mess, this organization is in shambles, then you know what? You need to seriously entertain trading Gore now. And I know that's not what people want to hear, but that's something that very much needs to be on the table. Now, on the flip side, if you view this as salvageable, then no way are you trading MacKenzie Gore. He's a key piece to what you're trying to establish here. So I think that's going to be so interesting. What does Mike DeBartolo truly think about the state of this team in its rebuild right now?
Yeah, and there were a couple of questions directed to him kind of along those lines. And Barry Svaluga from the Post straight up asked him about would he consider trading MacKenzie Gore. And you know, Mike DeBartolo kind of smirked and he said, look, it's been a really eventful 48 hours. I'm not really there yet. I'm not really ready to give an answer to that kind of question. Perfectly within reason for that to be his answer. His entire world has turned upside down here in the last couple of days. But that is the kind of thing that he's going to have to consider in a pretty short amount of time. And reading between the lines, I did feel like I was getting from him that he believes a good number of the pieces are already in place here, but that they obviously need more on top of it. And that he doesn't necessarily take over thinking to himself, we are starting from scratch. We're starting all over here. We'll see. You know, I think as he really sits down and evaluates this and discusses with ownership what their vision for all this is, I would just say this. While there may be valid reasons to go to the extreme and see what you could get for MacKenzie Gore, who has 2.5 years left of control, the message that would be sending, I'm not sure that's the message that ownership or the front office really wants to send. Now, you could argue maybe it's in their best very long-term interest, but from a fan base that has kind of turned on them, especially as this year has gone south in year 4 of a rebuild, and I've got to believe that that public reaction to how this last month in particular has gone went a long ways towards convincing the learners to do what they did on Sunday night. I think it's a very hard sell from them to now try to say, okay, you've been patient with us for 4 years. Go be patient with us for another 3 years until we're ready to win again. Not saying that couldn't happen, but I think the priority or the first choice for them would be to say, we've got pieces in place. We need to add to that. It's not a time to subtract from that.
Yeah. No one is in the mood. No one has the appetite for this rebuild being restarted. There's no question about that. At the same time, you just in the middle of a rebuild fired your head of baseball operations and you fired your manager. So what's the messaging of that? The messaging of that is this ain't working. So if this isn't working, then you have to do what you think is proper. But it may be that this is salvageable. It's not an easy call to make right now where this is at. The rebuild isn't working, but that doesn't mean the rebuild can't be saved. And I would be really interested to know what Mike DeBartolo thinks about that. Look, the actions will tell us. I mean, what they do at the trade deadline is going to communicate to us how DeBartolo views the state of things. Hey, it's Al Galdi for Window Nation. The humidity is rather thick. You've got the AC running on blast, the fans on, and the shades closed, but the heat still seems to be seeping into your home. That is, until you replace your old, drafty windows with energy-efficient, top-quality windows from Window Nation. And right now, you can get 50% off all window styles plus 0 interest for 5 years. You heard that right. With Window Nation, you won't pay any interest until 2030. Call 866-90-NATION or visit windownation.com and tell Window Nation that you want the deal that you heard about from Al Galdi on the Nats Chat podcast. Also, know this, Window Nation will get the job done in a day or less. Window Nation's installation crews have over a decade of experience, so you can feel comfortable knowing that your windows are installed right the first time. Don't procrastinate another day. Save yourself another month of living in discomfort. Don't miss Window Nation's biggest deal of the year, 50% off all window styles now through July 31st. And remember, that comes with 0 interest until 2030. 866-90-NATION or windownation.com. That's 866-90-NATION or windownation.com. And tell Window Nation that you want the deal that you heard about from Al Galdi on the Nats Chat podcast.
If you're a lineman in charge of keeping the lights on, Grainger understands that you go to great lengths and sometimes heights to ensure the power is always flowing, which is why you can count on Grainger for professional-grade products and next-day delivery, so you have everything you need to get the job done. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Hi, I'm Richard Karn, and you may have seen me on TV talking about the world's #1 expandable garden hose. Well, the brand new Pocket Hose Copperhead with Pocket Pivot is here, and it's a total game changer. Old-fashioned hoses get kinks and creases at the spigot, but the Copperhead's Pocket Pivot swivels 360 degrees for full water flow and freedom to water with ease all around your home. When you're all done, this rust-proof anti-burst hose shrinks back down to pocket size for effortless handling and tidy storage. Plus, your super light and ultra-durable Pocket Hose Copperhead is backed with a 10-year warranty. What could be better than that? I'll tell you what, an exciting exclusive offer just for you.
For a limited time, you can get a free Pocket Pivot and their 10-pattern sprayer with the purchase of any size Copperhead hose. Just go to getcopperhead.com. That's getcopperhead.com for your 2 free gifts with purchase. Getcopperhead.com.
Message and data rates may apply. See terms for details.
I wouldn't get the job without talking to him. Let me put it that way. And like I say, my brother, I grew up almost with him. Like, I know him since I was 20, 23, 24 years old. And I learned how to play the game. He showed me how to be a professional.
So we had what DeBartolo said to you. With Miguel Cairo, I think what stood out to most of us was him getting emotional. He clearly cares for Davey Martinez. You have to respect that. Did anything else from his pregame session with you guys stand out?
No, that was the main thing. And you could tell how much he and really I'm sure all of the coaches were hurt by what happened. These are close friends and confidants of Davey Martinez, and I'm sure they feel like they've let him down in some way and feel guilty that he took the fall while they're all still employed. Everybody from the coaching staff is still here, and I believe they're going to stay the rest of the way. There's a couple of tweaks to the staff. Henry Blanco, who had been the catching instructor, is now the bench coach. And Bob Henley, longtime employee for the organization in a variety of roles and formerly the big league third base coach when they won the World Series, is back on the big league staff as what they're calling the Major League Field Coordinator. Just kind of another person who can help organize things, the drills they run, just the day-to-day operations of it. So, but that's it. Everybody else is staying, and I would believe is going to stay through the rest of the year. Now, I'm sure they all feel right now like they are lame ducks. You never say never, and I suppose there are a couple of guys, say Sean Doolittle in particular, who could probably fit in with a future manager and coaching staff. But most of these guys, I've got to believe, know that they're here for another 71 games, and that's going to be it. And I think Miguel Cairo probably falls in that same regard. Now, if he comes out and does a great job and the team clearly improves, he could put himself in the mix for the job as well. It was hard to gather from him in this moment how much he really wants that or not. But as everybody always says, there's only 30 major league managing jobs. You get the opportunity to do it, you do it. And even if it feels hurtful to your friend, and I was not surprised by his reaction. Maybe a little surprised that he got so emotional in public like that. I wasn't surprised that he felt the way that he did. And I'm also not surprised at all that Davey Martinez told him, take the job. You need to do this. You have an opportunity. Don't walk away because of me. I think that says a lot about both men. We'll see how this all plays out. But I as opposed to DeBartolo, who clearly is a serious candidate for the job beyond 2025, it feels like Miguel Cairo is here to finish out the year. And really the way he managed the game, the way he spoke beforehand, espoused a lot of the same kind of messaging that we got from Davey Martinez, for better or worse.
Yeah, he comes off as Davey Martinez 2.0, and I don't know that that's what this franchise needs right now. Cairo has been an interim manager before. He was the Chicago White Sox's interim manager for the team's final 34 games of the 2022 regular season, did go 18-16. So, yes, there was an actual game on Tuesday night. It was a 4-2 Nats loss at the Cardinals. Another lackluster game for the Nats offensively. 2 runs, 8 hits, which were 2 doubles and 6 singles, 3 walks, 2 for 8 with runners in scoring position. The Cardinals starting pitcher, Sonny Gray, 2 runs, 5 innings, 6 strikeouts, 1 walk. James Wood, he is the Nats starting left fielder and number 2 batter, 1 for 4 with an RBI single. He did strike out 3 times, but he also had as casual of a home run robbery as you'll ever see. From a Nats perspective, this might have been the highlight of the game. Bottom of the 7th.
And Chafin delivers. Breaking ball hit in the air to deep left. Woods going back. Warning track. He's there. He leaps against the fence and hauls it in. Or did he even leap? He pulled it back in. I think he reached over the 8-foot wall without leaving his feet.
Wood robbed Mason Wynn of a home run on a 2-out flyout. Wood, who is listed as being 6'7", did not appear to really leave his feet. Did he actually make a flat-footed home run robbing catch, or at least something close to a flat-footed home run saving catch?
There may have been about an inch or 2 of space between the ground and the bottom of his feet, but that's all that it was. And this is not some kind of like short Fenway Park fence here at Busch Stadium. It's like the standard 8-foot high fence. But when you're 6'7" and have the reach that he does, you can pretty much just stand there, stick your glove up, and rob a home run. He kind of smirked about it when we asked him after the game. He didn't necessarily know that he was going to be able to do that, but you get there, you track the ball, you realize, okay, I've got this. I don't really need to jump, so why bother jumping? It was one of the stranger highlights you'll ever see because it looks so nonchalant, and yet the impact of the play is huge because of what he did. He prevented it from going over the fence, but pretty nondescript game in a lot of ways. The one thing I did like offensively, in the 3rd inning, they scored their 2 runs, and they did it with smart, aggressive base running. You had 2 guys go first to third, including Jacob Young on a base hit to the left side, to left field, and he still made it first to third. That put him in position to score. C.J. Abrams did it on James Wood's single up the middle. And then really smart base running by Wood. 1 out, runners on the corners. Luis Garcia hits a ground ball to the right side, second baseman. Wood, if he keeps going, could get tagged or start a 4-6-3 double play and the run's not going to score. Instead, he slammed on the brakes, backed up, forced the Cardinals to take their time before getting him, and thus couldn't turn the double play, and that allowed the run to score. It's a small thing, but guess what? The little things matter. You really hope, if nothing else, we see a better job from them in those kinds of little things. That didn't help them win the game in this particular game, but I want to see more of that kind of stuff. Smart, aggressive base running. It made a difference and directly led to them scoring 2 runs. Unfortunately, the only 2 runs they scored in the game.
Tim Shover's here to tell you about Babbel. Did you know that the Nats are on the Spanish radio airwaves for the second consecutive season?
Luis Garcia Jr. por Lips con un batazo altísimo. Atrás era dinero. La bola se va, se va, se va. Se fue la fruta.
If you want to know what Luciano and Gustavo are saying on the broadcast on calls such as this one, then check out Babbel. And here's their special offer for Nats Chat listeners. 60% off subscriptions at babbel.com/NatsChat. Get up to 60% off at babbel.com/NatsChat. That's spelled BABBEL.com/NatsChat. Babbel.com/NatsChat. Rules and restrictions may apply.
Hi, I'm Richard Karn, and you may have seen me on TV talking about the world's #1 expandable garden hose. Well, the brand new Pocket Hose Copperhead with Pocket Pivot is here, and it's a total game changer. Old-fashioned hoses get kinks and creases at the spigot, but the Copperhead's Pocket Pivot swivels 360 degrees for full water flow and freedom to water with ease all around your home. When you're all done, this rust-proof anti-burst hose shrinks back down to pocket size for effortless handling and tidy storage. Plus, your super light and ultra-durable Pocket Hose Copperhead is backed with a 10-year warranty. What could be better than that? I'll tell you what, an exciting exclusive offer just for you.
For a limited time, you can get a free pocket pivot and their 10-pattern sprayer with the purchase of any size Copperhead hose. Just go to getcopperhead.com. That's getcopperhead.com for your 2 free gifts with purchase. Getcopperhead.com.
Message and data rates may apply. See terms for details.
Here's the wind now. Pitch on the way. Swinging a drive by Nootbaar to deep right field. Lila's back at the fence. Along the wall, he leaps and he can't get it. It's in play. They're going to signal a home run, though. It's a home run for Nootbaar. It cleared the wall and hit off that video board above the 8-foot wall and landed back on the warning track. Lars Nootbaar with his 12th home run of the year, his 39th run batted in of the season. The second home run of the game off Jake Irvin, just clearing the wall, a 366-foot home run. And it's now the Cardinals 4, the Nationals 2.
The Nats starting pitcher on Tuesday night, Jake Irvin, he was going on 4 days rest. He did struggle, 4 runs, 6 innings, gave up 6 hits, which were 2 home runs, 2 doubles, and 2 singles. He issued 4 walks, recorded just 3 strikeouts, 98 pitches, 59 strikes, 39 balls. He did not have a single clean inning. Now, he was good in the first inning. We know that that's been a problem, but this was not a particularly good outing for Jake Irvin.
No, he labored early on, high pitch count. He, left a couple pitches up. Like there was a 90-mile-an-hour fastball at the top of the zone to Brandon Donovan in the 3rd inning that turned into a 2-run homer. And then it was a changeup to Lars Nootbaar in the 6th for the other home run. Jake said that he put those pitches where he wanted to and he tipped your cap. I have a hard time believing that he may have wanted to throw a 90-mile-an-hour fastball at the top of the zone, but that's not usually where you want to throw a pitch at that velocity. So I don't know if that just meant he felt like he could throw it harder and get it by him or what, but that to me, it's hard to believe that was a well-executed pitch. It's 4 runs in 6 innings. It's unfortunately the kind of start we've seen from him and several others on this team. His offense only scored 2 runs, so he was going to have to be excellent for them to win this game. He was not. It wasn't bad, but he certainly wasn't anything special. probably the best thing he did. He went 6 innings and, left Miguel Cairo to make some pretty basic bullpen decisions the rest of the way.
Yeah, the Nats bullpen in this game was good. 2 Nats relievers combined for 2 scoreless innings. Andrew Chafin, perfect bottom of the 7th. Mason Thompson, a scoreless bottom of the 8th. Also on Tuesday afternoon, as if there wasn't enough to take in with the Nats, a bunch of roster moves. We have a new Nats reliever, Luis Garcia, not to be confused with Nats second baseman Luis Garcia Jr., and the two are not related, but the Nats on Tuesday afternoon announced having agreed to terms with veteran reliever Luis Garcia on a 1-year major league contract. This is his age 38 season. He had been with the Los Angeles Dodgers this season, did not pitch well. Also, the Nats on Tuesday afternoon announced having option reliever Eduardo Salazar to AAA-Rochester. Meantime, catcher Keibert Ruiz is out again. The Nats on Tuesday afternoon announced having put him back on the 7-day concussion injured list, retroactive to July 6th. Not good. It was just this past Friday, July 4th, that the Nats announced having reinstated Ruiz from the 7-day concussion injured list. The Nats on Tuesday afternoon announced having recalled catcher Drew Millas from AAA-Rochester. And the Nats on Tuesday afternoon announced having transferred starting pitcher Trevor Williams to the 60-day injured list. And that especially stands out because it was just this past Friday that the Nats put Williams on the 15-day IL due to a right elbow sprain. So he clearly is out for a while and may well be done for the season. But these actually were all pretty significant roster transactions by the Nats, end up getting buried somewhat by the other things that took place.
Yeah, I will concede that given everything else that was going on and the number of questions that we had for both Mike DeBartolo and Miguel Cairo, we didn't really get around to the other stuff with them. We're probably going to have to follow up on that on Wednesday. Luis Garcia, the pitcher, been around the block for a while. The stats, as you said, were not great with the Dodgers, but the peripherals were better than that. So they may see something there. If nothing else, a veteran. We know how rough the bullpen has been, especially those guys at the 6th, 7th, 8th spots of the bullpen. They've now made a couple of moves here in recent days. Ryan Ludus and Eduardo Salazar out, and Mason Thompson and now Luis Garcia in. Let's see how that goes. If nothing else, some experience and some different looks for them. I want to hear more about what exactly happened with Keibert Ruiz. There was a moment the other day at home that he was getting checked on, and I'm not entirely sure what it was about. I didn't really give it too much thought at the time, but during Sunday's game, there was a point that they didn't pinch run for Riley Adams late in the game when they were still in it. And I thought to myself, that's a little odd. Turns out Ruiz probably wasn't feeling well enough to be able to be used in that game, so they had to leave their only catcher in. So it's a concern. They kind of rushed him back. It was about 10 days that he missed the first time. You hope for his sake that it's nothing too bad, but that is a concern to be back on the concussion IL again this soon. We saw Riley Adams start this game. I'm very interested to see whether it's Miguel Cairo's decision, whether it's Mike DeBartolo's decision. Do we see more of Drew Millas now? Even when he was up before, it was the occasional start, once a series, once a road trip kind of thing. At this point, I think we know what Riley Adams is. Is it time just to find out what Drew Millas is? Maybe he's not the answer to anything, but it'd be nice to kind of have a little more information, actual big league playing time to judge him more on. And as far as Trevor Williams goes, we'll find out more hopefully about him, maybe also Derek Law we're going to ask about on Wednesday and start getting some more updates. But clearly he's going to be out for quite a while. And that 2-year, $14 million contract, the last multi-year deal that Mike Rizzo signed for someone with the Nationals as his GM, not looking real good right now.
No, it's not. You can have major questions about ownership, and I think you are right to. But that doesn't mean that you can look at Mike Rizzo and Davey Martinez and not put blame on them too. I don't think you have to pick a side in this. I've never felt that way. I've seen some people doing that. I think that's ridiculous. I think everyone in this shares in the blame for why the Nats are where they are. Ownership, Mike Rizzo, Davey Martinez. Game 2 for the Nats at the Cardinals. Wednesday night at 7:45. MacKenzie Gore will be the Nats starting pitcher. Hit us up on X at Nats_chat. Hit us up on Blue Sky at Nats Chat Podcast. You can email the show to natschatpodcast@gmail.com. All Nationals radio highlights on Nats Chat are courtesy of 106.7 The Fan. For Mark Zuckerman, I'm Al Galdi. We thank you for listening to this installment of the Nats Chat Podcast, and we're going to leave you with something special right now, a voice memo of gratitude to Mike Rizzo and Davey Martinez, and this comes from someone very special, Scott Abelman of Let Teddy Win. Scott has been a loyal listener of this podcast since day one. Scott, we thank you for that, and take it away.
Hi, guys. 21-year season plan holder Scott here, a.k.a. Let Teddy Win. I have a request. So I caught Sunday's game while I was visiting family in New Jersey. Then I hit the road to drive back to D.C. At a certain point while I was driving, my phone started buzzing with texts. I tried to be a safe driver. I didn't look at my phone, but the volume of texts kept coming, and it made me wonder. No joke. I was wondering, what's going on? Could it be the Nats just fired Davey Martinez? So I actually switched on 106.7 The Fan and then got the full scope of the news. Now, no matter what you think of the current state of the team, whether you think it was time for both Rizzo and Martinez to go, if you're a true Nats fan, you have to be grateful for the contributions of Mike and Davey, for the players they brought, the victories they brought, the memories that they created, for the priceless trophy that we will have forever, and for the gracious way that they interacted with Nats fans. So it's hard for me to see them just disappear without a goodbye. I'm sure I'm not alone in wanting to know how fans can send a message of thanks to both Mike Rizzo and Davey Martinez.
Hudson sets. Rendon to the right of the cutout at third. Here's the pitch. Swinging a fly ball center field. Robles going back. Still back there. He makes the catch. He makes the catch. He makes the catch. And a wild card game winning Curly W is in the books.
Ready to make a real impact every day? Join the Active Day Home Care team and help clients maintain their independence in the comfort of their own homes. Make a difference in someone's life as you provide essential daily assistance and protect their health and happiness. Earn up to $20 an hour and enjoy additional perks like optional daily pay, 401k, paid time off, ongoing educational training, and more. Join a team that values care, compassion, and your professional growth. Visit activeday.com to apply.